What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Bleeves in Chicago. I am here today with the mayor of Hammond, Indiana, Mr. Tom McDermott, and we're here to talk about the Chicago Bears. Tom, how are you?
Good. Nice to see you, Bleeves.
You too, man.
I know we met once before, but it's nice. I've been watching you through this entire negotiation with the Bears, and I thought you've done a really good job. That's why I'm glad that we finally get to do this together.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, off the record, but on your record, I had a crazy conversation where I wanted to do something wild with Tom to do a video in response to another video that we had seen, and it just wasn't a good time to do it. So We're not going to do that right now, but I do want to say this. Tom, there's been a lot going on with these tornadoes, been a lot happening right now. Is there anything that you would like to say to everybody watching right now about what's going on?
Yeah. We're constantly working. We're in Hammond. We have about 85% of the people that were out, the homes, with over 20,000 homes were out at one point. Oh, excuse me. It was about 12,000 homes were out. Each home has about 2 or 3 people living in it. So it's half my city was sitting in the dark. So NIPSCO's working real hard. They got 85% power restored in Hammond. I'm real proud of that. But our neighbors in Munster, our neighbors in Maryville, in Portage, and Gary, almost the entire city's in the dark right now. I know that not a lot of people are thinking about football season, and they probably don't want to hear us talking about football season, but we are constantly working for you. We're constantly working on this issue. NIPSCO's working real hard right now, and just keep the faith. Everybody's working real hard for you. I just wanted to start off, and I appreciate you letting me say that, Bleeves, because I'm going to get criticized for doing this, but we are working. I literally left City Hall, and I came straight here, and I'm going to go back to City Hall when this is over. I'm not going to rest until Hammond's 100% restored, so including all of our neighbors in Northwest Indiana. It was like a hurricane, and I'm not even kidding. I was in the backyard when it hit, and I saw a tree come down in the first 10 seconds of the storm. So, and hundreds of trees across Northwest Indiana are down. A lot of people are still in the dark. So we're thinking about you. Maybe Bleeves and I could distract you for half hour or so. How about that?
And funny thing, I lived in South Florida for a few years. I've been through hurricanes that were not nearly as bad as what happened here.
I agree.
This was devastating. Driving home, I was in the gym, by the way, when it happened. They put us in the locker rooms, told us to wait there for like 30, 45 minutes while it went on. Then when I got out, I drove and everything was fine for that minute leaving the parking lot. But when I got out of the parking lot, there were trees everywhere. Yeah. It was an absolute disaster, to the point that I ended up calling home and saying, hey, I don't know if I can get home because streets are blocked off. There's trees in the middle of streets. I wasn't sure that we could make it. And in fact, on the road that I live on, which, spoiler alert, Meadow in Munster, there was a tree down. I could not get there. We had to go backwards on a one-way street in order to get to my house. It was devastating.
That first day, all the traffic lights were out, and it was a normal day. Everybody was at work, so rush hour was a nightmare. It was the first 24 hours. There was no sleeping. It's the worst storm I've ever been in. It was 2 times in my life I've seen a green sky. It was green right before it hit. It was scary color.
Yeah.
Like
we appreciate everything you guys do. We appreciate everything that's been happening here, getting us back up,
by the way,
power, etc.
Hammond's Public Works crews had the roads cleared in Hammond by Thursday. We were driving normally in Hammond, and we were hoping that would allow us to re-energize quicker, and we didn't get it as quickly as we wanted, but I'm not complaining. NIPSCO's overwhelmed right now. They're definitely working real hard. I'm not going to be one of the people that's beating up on NIPSCO. I'm just not, because They called in hundreds of contractors. They're working very hard right now to try to restore power. So I appreciate you. Before we get talking about the Bears, I appreciate you giving us that opportunity, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, like, in all honesty, I was myself without power for 5 days, and most of the time I was coming to Hammond because the Hammond situation was being resolved so much better than the situation in Munster. And I know that we were really at the heart of it, and that the tornado actually went right through down my streets.
Wicker Park area.
Yeah. So I know that it was probably the worst hit, but you guys were immediate, and the lights were coming on here a lot faster than we were seeing everywhere else. So
there's
cleanup.
There's times it's better when you're a bigger city, and I think when you have a disaster like we had, it's better when you're a bigger city, because I have a bigger army of people that can help clean up. So So,
all right. Well,
thank
with
you.
that out of the way, let's
Thank
talk
you. I'm glad we
Chicago
did that.
Bears.
Let's talk Chicago Bears. It's
Let's
a good
talk
distraction,
Chicago Bears.
right?
I put a list of questions together that I wanted to ask you, and you said, ask me anything that you want.
Yeah,
so
I did.
You tell me when I ask these questions what's going on with each and every one of them. I didn't put them in an exact order, so there's no real timeline or anything.
Could
like
I plead
that.
the fifth?
And you can plead the fifth on every single one of them.
It's going to be a real boring show.
And you want to know what's going on, you're actually going to know more by him answering these questions, and he was open to all of them. So let's go with...
If I can't talk about it, I'll just be honest, because obviously I don't want to jeopardize this deal, and I did sign a non-disclosure agreement, but there is a lot of public information that's wrong. I think I can help straighten some of that out. And like I said, Bleeves, I noticed you were consistently the most accurate from where I sat through this whole ordeal. It's true. You were the most accurate all the way through, which is why if I get my choice to sit down, I'm going to sit down with the people being most accurate. So.
I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So let's do number one. What have you heard about results at Wolf Lake Terminal's location?
I plead the fifth. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I can tell you what we know.
Yeah.
All right, Wolf Lake Terminals. It's a peninsula in Hammond, about 110 acres. Okay, stadium. Any NFL stadium needs about 60 acres. Okay, so it's plenty big enough by itself to host the Bears stadium and still have 50 acres on the peninsula to develop, which is interesting to the Bears. All right, 2 landowners basically. The Mittendorf family, and we've been in contact with them, and we have a great relationship with them. And the other side is Department of Defense. If Mayor McDermott's pushing this project, we have 0.0% chance of getting the Department of Defense to think about relocating that facility. Thankfully, it's not just Mayor McDermott involved in this deal. We have both Indiana U.S. senators as well as Northwest Indiana's congressman. So that's Senator Jim Banks. That's Senator Todd Young. We have Congressman Frank Mervan working hand in hand with us on this deal. And don't forget about Governor Braun, who has a lot of weight and a lot of pull with the Trump administration. So we have all the right people working on it. And I can tell you we've had meetings with representatives of the DOD in Hammond. And I think it's very positive what's happening.
All right. So,
but like as far as the test results,
yes,
we know the city knows it's clean. We do.
And
I
thought that we did.
But like, okay, so now you're the Bears and you have a great relationship and you trust these people in Hammond. They trust me. Okay. They trust our team.
Right.
But they're not going to spend $6 billion based on my word alone. Yeah, you got it. No problem, Mr. McCaskey. Right. He's not going to just take Mayor Tom's word. He's going to verify that everything's clean before they invest billions of dollars there. And it makes total sense. So
I have talked repeatedly about what I call the dishonest Chicago media in that context, because I don't think that they're really dishonest so much as they're fans of Chicago before the Chicago Bears. That's what I like to say. And
I agree with you.
I think that they just really want it to be a different way. So a lot of the information that you come out from people like Parachutes, different people, is that, this place is a disaster. It's a slag heap. And I know that it is a slag heap. I mean, by technicality, it's some of those locations probably got a lot of, but Lost Marsh, they already did the due diligence. They said we did the due diligence there and it passed.
Lost Marsh is clean.
So
clean as a whistle.
It seems very weird, and it has seemed very weird, that they have come up with such a narrative that everything is toxic, everything is poison.
Well, I mean, the governor of the state of Illinois is out there saying the same thing,
right? Which
makes him a liar in my book. And I'll be honest, I've always been a J.B. Pritzker fan. I'm a Democrat supporter. I always hoped privately he'd run for president.
Nobody's perfect.
No, but honestly, I think he's just a liar now, and he's a sore loser. And quite frankly, if Illinois wanted to make this deal, they could make this deal, and I think the Bears would appreciate that. But Illinois doesn't want to make the deal, so JB's out there lying to Illinois residents because he's trying to cover his own butt. Because he's going to lose the Chicago Bears. He's going to be the governor that loses the Chicago Bears, and he's lying. So he says things like, "In Hammond, it's a toxic waste dump," which I think is actionable because that's completely not true. And could we sue the governor's office in Illinois for defamation? Maybe. Maybe it's something I'll check into, but we're a little busy right now. Yeah. But it comes right from the top, and then Chicago media jumps in, and it's like the stages of anger. One of the stages of anger, stages of loss. One of the stages of loss is anger, and I think that's the stage a lot of people in the media, including J.B. Pritzker, are in Illinois.
Well, fortunately, some of these guys have moved on to denial. So,
yeah, right.
We were in a denial phase with a lot of people because what they said was that there was no way that you could build in this location. And I feel like from all the information that I've gotten so far that there's nothing that's going to stop them other than maybe a you know what? Let me go off the topic here and say, what would happen here in your estimation? You've made a tremendous deal. What if the state of Illinois gets back to function instead of dysfunction? And what if they make the same deal that you currently have? Chicago Bears would probably be preferable to Illinois at that point. Is there a counter narrative where the state of Indiana would say, you know what, let us give you a better offer? Is there a possibility that that would happen in a negotiation process?
Okay, so let's just say Indiana, let's just call it 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
I think that's in the ballpark, okay?
Right.
So Indiana offers 1.5 billion, offered already, and let's say Illinois matches that 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if all things being equal, would the Bears choose Illinois in that case? I think a lot of people would think yes, but the problem with that argument is, okay, let's say the Bears choose Illinois' 1.5 billion. Then, unfortunately for the Bears, they have to do business in Illinois for the next 30 years, and that 1.5 billion ain't worth a sack of beans because Illinois is in such bad financial shape. Whereas if the Bears move to Indiana and take our 1.5, the Bears are going to operate in a state with a AAA credit rating. And a great business climate. And for the next 30 years, the Bears are going to be taken care of instead of getting milked in Illinois like they've been getting.
Makes sense to me. So when could we expect some concrete information about this move? Do you have the timeline that the Chicago Bears originally came with was late spring, early summer? We are not late spring or early summer anymore.
Right.
We are we're about into the fall.
Right.
So when could we expect some increase? We would assume that, and the reason that I ask is because soil sampling, from what I've researched, takes about 2 weeks, which means to me that the geographical or the topographical, whatever survey that falls under, is probably already complete. They know what they need to know about the soil in that location, which would lead to a bunch of different dominoes falling at some point. So what are we waiting for, and when can we expect a kind of a resolution where people can stop saying, I just want it to be over with?
Right. I want it to be over with also. And I would love to see shovels in the ground right now and us pouring concrete and doing everything, but I'm not in charge of this situation. The Bears are. And I'm not going to rush the Chicago Bears in a multi-billion-dollar investment into our city. That's a game changer for Hammond. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, and I'm getting used to this, especially with the power outages, it's completely out of our control when NIPSCO finally re-energizes your city. But in this situation with the Bears, I'm not driving this bus, and the state of Indiana is not even really driving this bus. We've done our work, and obviously the PR is what we're doing now and talking to people like yourselves, Bleeves. But that's a question that only Mr. McCaskey and Kevin Warren know the answer to. And quite frankly, they're going to move at their own pace. But I do know that they're anxious to get started. Yeah. So I would hope that it's done in September. Right. I've been saying Labor Day, and I think that's only 2 weeks away.
September 4, yeah.
Yeah, it's a couple weeks away. But that's what I was saying all through the summer. And Bleeves, by the way, when Kevin Warren approached us, talking to us about the Wolf Lake Terminal site, I knew when we started talking about this new location, first off, I think it's a superior site.
Yep.
Okay. And I also knew that this was going to push us back a couple months.
Yep. Because
of all the testing that needed to be at. But quite frankly, I think it's a superior site. And I think that the Bears are going to be much better in this location, and we'll still be able to develop a lot of the other property, but this is a superior location.
What do you think that location looks like? What I've said the entire time is that I think that Wolf Lake Terminal is, because like you said, they need about 110 total acres, 60 for the stadium, 50 for, I think that's parking and stuff like that around there. And
parking yeah.
So that takes up the Wolf Lake Terminals. Then you move just a little bit north and you've got those nondescript buildings just south of the pavilion called Electric Power or Electric Company. That seems to be a feeder area for that multi-use. What would that look like in your eyes or in your estimation? And what about the Lost Marsh? Did something happen with Lost Marsh where they kind of looked at it and said to themselves, you know what, we actually having this golf course right here, that actually really works for us? And I think that you guys really wanted to keep the Lost Marsh, or at least I heard that you were open to it disappearing, but that you really wanted to keep Lost Marsh because you thought that was kind of a gem sort of located in there. So explain to me, Wolf Lake Terminal, what does it look like? And is Lost Marsh really going to end up being part of this whole multi-use district sort of area?
We want this deal.
Yeah.
I want this deal. Hammond Council, I don't want to speak for the Hammond Council, but I presume that it's unanimous. They want this deal. I think over 3/4 of Hammond residents support the deal. Obviously the state governor, Governor Mike Braun, the leaders of both Indiana House and Senate are on board this deal, including the Indiana Finance Authority and Jim McGough, who's incredible. So everybody wants this deal. And the Bears came to us. If the Bears come to you, let's just say hypothetically, and they say, we want to put it on the Lost Marsh. Okay, the Lost Marsh is great. I love the Lost Marsh. I've played hundreds of rounds there. I know thousands of Hammond residents have, but it's only good for 4 or 5 months a year. The rest of the time, it's a nice area to walk your dogs. Yep. But if you could transform that into Bears, what I've been calling Bearsville, it's more important to have a multi-billion-dollar investment than it is to have a golf course. Okay. But if the stadium could be relocated adjacent to it and you could have that 18 hole as a complement, now you're talking. Yeah. So it is a beautiful golf course. It's a championship golf course. And I think it only adds to what the Bears are trying to do.
Yeah. I think that makes so much sense over there because that to me is a draw to bring people into the summer times, especially when I don't know if they're going to relocate Hallis Hall. I think that Hallis Hall probably is where it is.
I agree with you.
It will not be moved, and that'll be their training.
I love Hallis Hall. Where it is, it's gorgeous.
Exactly. So
and it seems like you always have it separate from the facility anyway.
Right.
So like you sort of go to the northern suburbs of Chicago and hang out at Hallis Hall, and then when the season starts, you come down here to Hammond and you play your games down here. Yep. Right. I agree with you. I think Hallis Hall is gorgeous.
All right. So what about this? Let's talk about the have you heard about the Lake and Porter County tax situation where I think it's 1% restaurant, 1% hotel tax. I'm going to assume Lake County is going to absolutely slam dunk that one with a yes. But what about Porter County? Because Porter County seems to be that outlier.
I know.
And I really, to be fair, I've only heard one person in Porter County talking negatively about it because they don't get a lot of press and they don't get a lot of conversation in the national media. So I've only seen one person saying that this is just a non-starter for me, but that's only one vote of a lot of votes. So where do you think that is?
I get it. I understand why Porter County was included, first off, because the drafters of the statute that passed Indiana wanted to model it after what we did for the Colts. Okay. And what we did for the Colts was all the collar communities around Marion County pay a 1% food and beverage tax to help pay for the Colts. And I'm sure they weren't thrilled about it, but they're all Colt fans and they all go downtown, and that was the rationale. Okay. And so when they put the Stadium Authority in Northwest Indiana together, they wanted to do it the same way. And we're in the corner of the state. So there's only one county that's adjacent to us, and that's Porter County. That was the thought. Okay. Now I do realize there's some pushback in Porter County. I don't think it's threatening to the deal. Even let's just say they said, nope, we're not doing it in Porter County. I don't think that kills the deal by any stretch of the imagination. What it does, though, is it puts Porter County on a target list. And I've been on target lists from the state before, and they're no fun. Okay. Because the state will get you. You don't want to put in your $1 million. Maybe it costs you $5 million because you don't play ball. This isn't Mayor Tom that's forcing Porter County to do this. This is the governor, and this is the supermajority, and they're not asking. They want this development, and they're going to do it. And it's better to be a team player in a situation when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar investment. It's better to be a team player. And I get where some of the elected officials are coming from. However, I guess this is Mayor Tom that's in his 6th term and learned a couple things over. It's better to play ball than it is to go off on your own. And if Porter County wants to go off on your own, the Bears deal will still happen, Bleeves. Yeah. But what'll happen a year or two after Porter County goes alone, the state will get even. I'm just telling you. I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you from experience. The state always gets back. And I think it's much wiser for Porter County to play ball.
I know you were here. You didn't come into the studio, but last week, Governor Braun did show up here to do some, because of the damage assessments.
Right.
And, I'm going to quote him that Porter County will not stop this deal.
I agree with you. And I've heard him say that.
Yeah, he's already indicated that this is not a deal breaker in any way.
Literally the smallest stream of revenue that we're counting on. It's the Porter County 1% food and beverage tax is a very small price to pay. Okay, but if the leaders of Porter County decide to thumb their nose to the state, I think that you'll pay a bigger price in the long run.
Gotcha.
That's a nice way to say it.
I'm going to hit you with something that's kind of out of nowhere that came from the rumor mill. I have no source that says this is real.
Uh-huh.
A couple months ago, the deal was finalized. I think it's been over 30 days now. Tillman Fertitta just paid $17 billion to buy the Horseshoe casinos.
This is a great question.
The Horseshoe Casino is one of the last ones that's on
Listen,
the
man,
water.
you're
It's
good.
moved to the land.
You're good.
I heard from a bird, by the way, a bird in my yard, not in somebody else's yard. I heard that Tillman Fertitta wants to move the Horseshoe Casino right next to the stadium to be part of that multi-use district. Do you know anything about that right now? And is there conversation about the Horseshoe getting off of the water onto dry land?
I plead the fifth. But okay, this is interesting. Okay, I did not hear that. It's interesting though, because it's true that Caesars Entertainment is going through an ownership change, and it's true that the new owner, gentleman you just mentioned, has ties to the NFL. And I'm not a believer. I don't really believe in coincidence. I just don't, especially when it comes to billions of dollars. And we don't have ownership changes of Caesars happen very often. It's happened, I think, 2 times in my 25 years as mayor. Okay, so the fact that the new owner of Caesars also has great ties with the NFL is. I was always thinking that's very interesting to me. It seems interesting. We're going through this, and it seems interesting. The Bears are very serious about Hammond, and I sort of conflate those two together. But I have no proof whatsoever other than a gut feeling. Okay, I do want to make that clear. This is just Tom's gut, and sometimes my gut's great. Sometimes my gut gets me in all kinds of trouble. Okay, so I think it's an interesting question, though.
Yeah,
I've never heard anybody ask that question. I've never been asked that question, but it's a great point.
Yeah, I get the sense, and I get the. By the way, he is a Bears fan.
That's great.
So I get this sense and I get this feeling. I just don't have a real solid source to back it all up other than speculation. And I can tell you that it came from the board when the deal was being done.
I would totally be excited about that. And by the way, Indiana has broken ground with this mold because we moved the casino off of the waterfront in Gary in Buffington Harbor. We moved it to 8094, and it's done really well for the Hard Rock Casino. So the precedent has been established. So could it happen where we move Hammond's Horseshoe Casino out of the Hammond Marina and move it to adjacent to the Bear Stadium? That could totally happen. It would have to be approved by Caesars. It would have to be approved by the state of Indiana. Obviously, Hammond would have to be part of that, but that would be great if it happened.
All right. Next one. Were you aware? South Shore. The South Shore announced the. I think they call it the Hammond Bear Stadium Connector. There is no way that's going to go public by the time it's done. I think it's going to be the Hammond/Chicago Bears Stadium Connector, just because people are so weird about words. But did they reach out to you? Did they talk to you about that? Because that really is a transitional. That really transitions that southern area beyond Wolf Lake terminals vastly.
Oh, yeah.
So have you guys had some discussions with them about the potential for that? What would it look like? When would they get started? And would that include that you guys would have to get deep into work with the roadways, not just public transportation, but with the roadways leading into that area? Because I've been there. You've been there. It's really not made for what it's not made
Bleeves.
for 85,000 people.
$600 million in new infrastructure is part of this deal.
There you go.
And that's what I'm talking about. It's going to be off-ramps, new off-ramps that don't exist currently, wider streets that don't exist currently. So, I mean, just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
There's going to be a massive infusion of investment into that area for the infrastructure. All right. South Shore. That what you're referring to, the extension that goes from the Hammond's Gateway Station up to the proposed Chicago Bears Stadium. If it was at Wolf Lake, if it was at the Lost Marsh area, or if it's in the Wolf Lake Terminals area, actually it's way cheaper if it's in Wolf Lake Terminals because it's literally half a mile closer to the Gateway Station. But what South Shore did was more like a planning document.
Yes.
And they added this to the planning document. Yeah. And if you notice, the map that they approved that day had the extension that goes to the proposed Bear Stadium, but it also has routes that don't exist currently.
Don't exist, right.
So it was exciting that it came out. A lot of people thought that that's what they were doing, but it's more, I think it's just like the large scale planning documents that governments do, including the South Shore. They're like, yeah, this is definitely part of our long-term plan, is having a spur that goes from Hammond's Gateway Station north to the new Bear Stadium.
All right. Can I tell you that I also heard that the DOD is already looking at property on I-65?
Well, that doesn't surprise me. No, it doesn't.
I just kind of heard that out of nowhere that they were looking.
You got good sources.
There's so many different new buildings on I-65 that are popping up that I was told that not only them, but Berlin Metals was also looking at a new location already. So I think that there seems to be a lot working or going on right there.
You know what's exciting about this is there's people, I'm sure, like we were talking about the Mittendorf family and all the different businesses that they lease to. I'm sure this is a pain in their butt. And I can tell you, you mentioned the electric company earlier, and then you got like Beamsterboer over there, and then you got Kyle Chemical or whatever they call themselves now, Dover Chemical. But all these companies would rather continue operation.
Yeah.
But for the most part, when they're contacted about possibly having to relocate, they've been very cooperative, because they realize what this stadium is going to do for Hammond and for Northwest Indiana. And even though it's inconvenient to them, I think they're like of the opinion, this is just a game changer. We're going to have the Chicago Bears in Northwest Indiana. Yeah. It's a game changer. It's 2,000 new permanent jobs, good jobs. Yeah.
All right. So I think two questions to close this out. First of all, has there been any offers? Have the Bears had any kind of property offers, or are we still a little bit early in that phase for the Bears actually doing anything more? And I think that I should point out to everybody, the Mittendorfs would not have allowed soil sampling. And this is for the people in Chicago who've said, and I've seen the rumors that the Mittendorfs were not interested in selling and that Wolf Lake Terminals was not for sale. There wouldn't be testing of any sort on that property.
True story.
Unless the Mittendorfs had already said, you know what, if there's a deal to be made, we want to make a deal.
True story.
So that would be correct, right?
True story. Absolutely true. And by the way, DOD site, there's been testing done there. How do we get on? We got permission. Just like the Mittendorf family has to give us permission to go on. They could say no. And if they say no, it costs us time, it costs us money. Yeah. But, and also something you mentioned earlier, I sort of want to straighten out is the Bears aren't really part of the property acquisition at all.
The state and the state or local government would be, and
Absolutely.
Then they would get it through the state is what I would think.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it would work. The Bears would get it after all of that. The Bears aren't going to be the ones exercising eminent domain. It would be your government. It would be either your state government or your local government here in Hammond. The Bears are, they know what they want, and they expect us to do what we can to make it happen, and that's what we're doing.
All right, now the final question. And this is going to be the tough one, because this one to me is kind of weird here. And really, it's weird in a good way. Mm-hmm. The Bears move to Wolf Lake Terminals. Mm-hmm. The Bears create a world-class stadium. Now we've got we've got famous bands coming. We've got a lot of different things going. We got an NCAA Final Four. Mm-hmm. We got a Super Bowl and stuff like that.
Taylor Swift concerts.
Mm-hmm. The Offspring, which, by the way, I did not get to announce, and I reached out because I'm a punk rock kid.
They played in Hammond.
They played in Hammond. And
I know,
was like,
they were great.
I should be introducing them on stage.
They were great. They were great.
They
were great.
I loved it.
I've always loved the Offspring, but they were. I thought they would just go out there and play their hits. They were really like punky, edgy. It was a loud concert. It was great.
What's crazy is they are kind of radio ready nowadays, but they are a punk rock band.
They are great.
At their heart. When you watch them,
I loved it. I loved the concert, and I've been to hundreds of concerts in my life. I've been to good and bad.
How does this affect the Festival of the Lakes every year?
Good question.
You got the pavilion right here, but now you've got this world-class stadium right there where you could have, instead of 5, 10, 15,000 people, you have 50,000 people watching these top-of-the-line bands, and then you could have like a different sort of festival for the Festival of the Lakes, one that would include huge bands inside the new stadium, whatever it's called.
Right.
And then you could have like just like the Ozfest, or just like the Lollapalooza, or just like the Riot Fest, where you have multiple stages. Is there a plan, or have you considered and started with a plan on what happens to Festival of the Lakes in the pavilion?
Yeah, we were worried. I've heard a lot of rumors this year that this was the last Festival of the Lakes, and I was like, wow, I figured I'd be part of that.
None of them came from you, so
no,
I didn't.
That's what I kept trying to straighten it out every time I heard it, and people just assumed that the Bears were looking at Wolf Lake Park, and Bears are looking. They're looking at everything. Yeah. They're looking at Wolf Lake Park. They're looking at the Lost Marsh. They're looking at Wolf Lake Terminals. They're looking all over there, right? So if the Bears chose Wolf Lake Park and they're like, Mayor, this is the one we want, we'd say yes because we want the Bears, right? And then I would be like, okay, that's sad because the Festival of the Lakes is great and it's a part of our city, but this is better, right?
Yeah.
I don't, first off, I want you to know that I've heard from representatives of the Bears how much they love the pavilion in that area. Yeah. So I don't think they'd be interested in knocking it down. Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't. So I could put it this way: we're already hiring bands for next year. We're out looking right now for next year's Festival of Lakes. Right now,
I'll be introducing whatever punk band it is on stage.
I know.
Right? Fist bump.
Let's go. I'm trying to. That's my type of music. Usually, those bands are the ones I pick. So
I'll tell you, Offspring, Face to Face, The Descendants are my favorite band of all time.
I've never even heard of them. That's crazy.
The Descendants are just you will. My wallpaper,
I'm a Grateful Dead guy, so I'm a little.
My wallpaper on my computer at home are homages to The Descendants and Face to Face and Authority Zero. I mean, real punk rock bands from like the 80s and 90s and 70s and stuff.
That's awesome.
And I'm such a big fan.
Cool.
So yeah, I punk rock band. I'll be announcing that. And I think that's it. I think we've covered everything.
I think so too. And you asked me something earlier, if you don't mind me clearing it up. What do I picture this whole area looking like? I think, I was saying Bearsville, and that's so cheesy. I don't like even saying it anymore. I remember as a young man driving out to O'Hare and seeing the area around O'Hare, and there was hardly anything there. And now when you drive out there, you see the softball stadium, you see the casino out there, and all the development they built in the Rosemont area. Yeah. I think that's what we're talking about. Sort of like a boomtown of new stuff around the new stadium.
Yeah.
So it'd be outside of, the state of Illinois, just inside Indiana. You'll all of a sudden, boom, like the Rosemont type of development just pop up, the stadium, the restaurants, the hotels, the parking facilities, everything, boom, just right there. It's going to be brand new. It's going to be beautiful. I'm excited. I can't wait to put all these great, local construction trades members to work. I can't wait to when all these kids start getting hired out of WJLB and they get to go there and work for the Bears on the marketing team and stuff like that. That's the kind of opportunities that are going to present themselves that aren't there for us now. I'm really excited about that.
Can I give you a name for your brain that will fix your Bearsville thing?
Yeah, what's that?
Staleyville.
Staleyville, I like it.
Yeah. Because now you've got the mascot instead of the actual team name.
Yeah.
And it rolls off just a little bit better. Because that's what I was calling it in my brain was Staleyville.
Okay.
Just because I think it was originally called the Chicago Staleys or what was it? The
Hammond Pros.
Hammond Pros?
Yeah, the Hammond Pros.
Wasn't that, who was the coach over there?
I want to say it was Mr. Hallis.
George Hallis?
Well, he was on the team.
I don't know who that is. That's some guy.
He was on the team. Yeah. And then it became the Decatur Staleys, right?
Decatur Staleys. There you go. Yeah. So Staleyville.
Hammond has we have about 5 years ago, the NFL on draft day did a thing at each of the original NFL cities. And they had us do a pick, and we were right over here at Hammond Sportsplex. I got to read out the pick. I think it was the Kansas City Chiefs. It was the hardest name in the world. Yeah. Of course, I don't get John Brown. I get, a really complicated name to read off on national TV. So I don't even know if that guy's still in the NFL, but it's been great. Yeah. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, man. I
hope we straighten some stuff out because there's a lot of misinformation out there about this deal. I make a policy to be as honest as possible. Yep. You didn't ask me anything I was uncomfortable answering, and I appreciate that.
Yep. So guys, now you have it. You have all the information up to the minute on what's going on with the Chicago Bears. There are hundreds of questions that I'm sure that everybody wants to know about and that everybody wants to ask. First of all, we probably don't have enough time for all of them. And secondly, a lot of them just really cannot be answered until the Chicago Bears make whatever move they're going to make publicly known, finalized, and then we can really start to have this conversation one more time with more data and more information.
Sounds good.
I think so. So
I'll come back.
Perfect. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Go Bears.
My name is Bleeves. This is the mayor for life of Hammond, Indiana, Tom McDermott, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bear
Good
down.
To see you.